Miss Hayes, is that your dog barking?
Yes.
Huh? I'll just hold it. Hmm?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me, it is
Good
6
evening.
o'clock. It is 6 o'clock. Let me go ahead on and call the meeting to order for our regular session of October 20th. It's only, can you call the roll for Councilman President?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Here.
Dickerson,
Here.
McBride,
Present.
Livingston,
Here.
Horatio, Walker.
Here.
Walker.
Sorry, did you get me?
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you.
Miss Kennedy,
Here.
Manning,
Present.
Myers, and Newton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next, two items on our agenda is invocation and the pledge of allegiance. I'll ask the Honorable Shakis Newton for the invocation and to lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Ms. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could for this evening take a moment of personal privilege as I've been thinking about all of the things that are going on in our community that we need to solve. And also personally, this Thursday is the 15th anniversary since my mother's passing, which reminds me that time is promised to no one. It made me reflect on the following quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and that is, "We are faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. There is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." And so I hope that gathered together tonight and all across Richland County, we can work together for vigorous and positive action. With that, I would ask those who are willing and able to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Newton. That brings to item 4 on our agenda, the presentation of resolutions. 4A, a resolution in support of F-35 Joint Strike Fighter basing at McIntyre Joint National Guard Base. Ms. Newton, do you have that one?
I do have that.
You want to go ahead and share that resolution?
Yes, sir. I will. Whereas the McIntyre Joint National Air Guard Base is a military airport located in Richland County, South Carolina, 10 miles west of the town of Eastover and approximately 15 miles southeast of the city of Columbia, and it is owned by the U.S. Air Force, affiliated with the South Carolina Air National Guard. And whereas the South Carolina Air National Guard was formed in December 1946, and the McEntire Joint National Guard Base was named for the late Brigadier General Barney B. McEntire, Jr., who was the first commandeer of the South Carolina Air National Guard and its first general officer. And whereas the McEntire Joint National Guard Base has a long history of supporting the people of Richland County in South Carolina, from serving as the state domestic operations hub in times of natural disasters and offering mutual aid and support for local first responders, to supporting education and outreach for local students. And whereas today, more than 1,400 Air National Guardsmen work and train at the McEntire Joint National Guard Base, including approximately 900 drill status men and women, where about 500 are full-time employees, to include federal technicians, active component airmen, and state employees. And whereas the world presents emerging challenges, it is important that our military stay current with 21st century technology. And whereas the United States Air Force continues to base the F-35A Lightning II Joint Strike Fighter aircraft across the total Air Force, we are in support of the McEntire Joint National Guard Base, with its compatible skill sets and expertise being designated as a home for the F-35 program. The F-35 will serve as a common airframe replacement and upgrade to the legacy aircraft in our Air Force, and will help ensure that we continue to have a strong military. And whereas, if stationed at the McEntire Joint National Guard Base, the F-35 would continue providing approximately $180 million in economic impact, and also boosts the state's economy by bringing new jobs and new opportunities in business. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Richland County Council would like to express our support for basing the F-35 program at the McEntire Joint National Guard Base, and respectfully request full and fair consideration attested this 20th day of October in 2020.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 5 on our agenda, presentation. 5A is a presentation regarding historic Columbia renaming of Woodrow Wilson House. Ms. Only, do you have that presentation?
Ms. Wade,
For the
Executive Director, is on the line.
Okay.
Dawn Mills Campbell, who is the liaison for Richland County, is going to make this presentation this evening.
Thank you very much. And you go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Good evening. I'm Dawn Mills Campbell, one of your liaisons to the Board of Historic Columbia. I am joined tonight by your additional appointee, Carol Hayward, Board President Gina Leslie, and Executive Director Robin Waits. And we are here tonight to report on a board recommendation that impacts one of the 2 properties Historic Columbia manages for Richland County, and to solicit your support for the change. As you know, Historic Columbia and Richland County have a long-standing relationship and partnership in preserving some of the most significant historic assets in the Midlands, including the Woodrow Wilson family home. Today, that site serves as home to a museum of reconstruction, which explores the racial, social, and political landscape of Columbia and Richland County after the Civil War from 1865 to 1877. It is currently promoted as the Woodrow Wilson Family Home, a museum of reconstruction. When Historic Columbia reopened the site after a major rehabilitation and interpretive shift in February 2014, it became the only museum in South Carolina and in the country to address on a major scale the ramifications of this watershed era. Moreover, it became the only place in the state where students, residents, and tourists had access to the broad themes that address the complex racial and social issues that are rooted in Reconstruction when South Carolina transitioned from a slave state to a free state. Now, while the exhibits do strongly connect to what we know of teenage Woodrow Wilson's experiences in Columbia when he lived at the site during this pivotal era, the primary focus of the site is the Reconstruction period. To be transparent and direct about the visitor experience at the site, Historic Columbia proposes to officially change the site's listing to the Museum of the Reconstruction Era at the Woodrow Wilson Family Home. Now, this is a conversation we have had over the course of the year with our board, and it was strongly supported by our council liaison, the late Councilman Chip Jackson. In fact, the week before his passing, we had a Zoom call with Mr. Jackson, during which he encouraged us to move immediately on this action. So it is important to note that this shift in title does not erase the site's history. In this case, the home is and always will remain historically significant because of its relationship to Woodrow Wilson. The building itself is not being renamed. It is still the Woodrow Wilson Family Home. Only the emphasis has changed. This gives Historic Columbia and Richland County a more forward-facing role in addressing the ongoing dialogue around the importance of the Reconstruction era to current events, and to be a resource for those in search of a deeper understanding of this transformative period in American history. So tonight we ask for your support for this change, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very, very much. Let me see if any of my colleagues have a nominee for presentation. It's not what we do, but just in case there's a question, I'll give my colleagues an opportunity to ask a question.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Myers, is that you?
this is Delia. Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you. To Dawn and to the rest of the Historic Columbia Board, thank you for putting this forward. I think it's outstanding. I agree and would love to associate myself with the comments of former Councilman Jackson. And for my part, I think this is an outstanding shift. Thank you for bringing this forward and for doing it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mann, you recognize?
I'm very pleased with this. I had the opportunity to stand on the front porch once the restoration was done, and our former colleague, Kelvin Washington, would say that this is about 6 to 8 years too late, or at least in its coming of age. And he had talked with council on so many occasions about his concern when we were in the restoration project. And I think it's only right and fair to invoke his name to this conversation. And with that, and the comments already made, and those attributed to our late colleague, Councilman Jackson, fully support this. And thank you for all your work to bring it to fruition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Is that
Ms. Dickerson,
Dix, you recognize?
I echo Ms. Myers' comments as well, because you all know that I had a serious problem with that, and I don't think I ever went there because of the naming. And this just makes me really happy to know that this is being done. So thank you all so much for all of your contributions to make this happen. And I certainly appreciate it. And maybe I'll come down and visit now.
Please do. Please do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, I'm not going to go over all of the comments that have been made, but I just want everyone to know that I agree with everything that has been said, and I am so happy about this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Ms. McBride?
Yes, I echo the comments of the others, and personally, I think Mr. Chip and Mr. Jackson and I had several conversations about this, and I actually decided to go. Ms. Waits, no, I think she gave me the tour. Ms. Waits, is that right?
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
I went to the place, to the house, and it was really, the tour was so great, and it's something that all our students should visit. regarding the reconstruction period. So I think the name is most appropriate, and I thank you for taking the initiative to bring this before us. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Let me just say thank you to and ditto what my colleagues have said. Again, thank y'all so very, very much.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Teresa, you recognize.
thank you. I think this is an excellent move. Is there anything that is needed from council to support this? Other than just what we've already given in support? Is there no action needed on this item?
I'm not sure whether there is or not, but I'll certainly follow up and check with legal. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Research again. If nothing else, again, thank you so very, very much for what you do for our community. That brings us to item.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Thank you. Point of order. I apologize. I was remiss after reading the proclamation in support of McIntyre that I did not mention that Colonel Akshay Gandhi from McIntyre was here, and we had offered him the opportunity to say a few words. So if he's still interested in that, I would like for us to extend that offer.
I'll certainly honor that. Is he present? He can, you may go ahead. And I apologize, the name again for me.
Colonel Gandhi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for, want to first thank the council for its just incredible support of McIntyre Joint National Guard base over the years. And in particular, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Newton for heading up the resolution effort. We really believe that the F-35 would help ensure the long-term success of McIntyre Joint National Guard base and keep that public-private partnership that we have going here in Richland County going on for quite some time. And we hope that the Air Force sees fit to base that aircraft at McIntyre. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you again for your support.
Thank you for what
Thank
you
you
do
for
for
all
our
that you
community.
do.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda, approval of minutes from our regular session of October 6th. Chair, entertain a motion regarding our minutes for October 6th.
Mr.
Move.
Chair, we accept the minutes as presented.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I do have an item.
It's moved and properly second. Discussion, change, deletions. Ms. Rachel, you recognize?
Thank you. Just one thing that I noticed that was that we have a time that we went into executive session at 6:22, but it was not noted when we came out. So if that could be added, that would be great.
Thank you. Anything else reference the minutes?
Yeah, what page are you on, please?
Mr. Malinowski, page 10 of 260 and the regular session, page 2. So
Got
it's
it.
page
Got
2
it.
of the minutes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that change, it is moved and properly second. Ms. Owner, can you call the roll for the adoption of the, I'm sorry, for the approval of the minutes?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes. Yes.
thank you, Manning, Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 7 on our agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. Entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
It's moving properly second. Do staff have any change, deletion, discussion, reference agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, this is Ms. Only. I have two hospitality tax allocations. One's from Ms. McBride and the other's from Ms. Dickerson that were received after the deadline that need to be added.
Darn, you getting short.
Chair, had a motion regarding
Mr. Chair?
those items. Ms. McBride, you recognize.
Yeah, Ms. Only, mine were submitted before the deadline. Staff didn't process it until after.
Yes, ma'am. I meant after the agenda had been printed out. I'm sorry.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And mine hit, but I think it was after it was printed, but that's all right. That's fine.
So the chair would
Miss
entertain a motion
Only, just
to add those
just a
items to the
moment, sir.
agenda.
Miss Only, just a moment, sir. Miss Only, were mine received in time?
Yes, ma'am. Yours were actually
Okay, thank you.
on the emotions list. That's why I didn't mention yours, but Ms. Myers
Okay,
does
thank
have H-tax allocations also.
So what's before us is a motion to add those items to the agenda. Chair,
So
motion.
I'll
I
make,
second the motion.
somebody who made the motion probably need to amend it, and I will second the amended motion.
I move to amend the agenda to include the items submitted by Ms. Dickerson and Ms. McBride.
And I second it. Thank you.
So it's a moving properly second. Discussion. Anything else to reference the agenda? If not, I intend a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So move.
Moved.
Second.
And properly second. Ms. Only, can you call the roll for the approval of the agenda as amended?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Manning, Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, report of the attorney for executive session items, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Livingston. Mr. Livingston?
You recognize Mr. Smith? Okay.
Okay, you're gonna have to read that information, remember?
Well, I just wanted you to say what it was, but if we go into the executive session, I'll certainly state it. But what's under executive session for the attorney is under 8.8. And let me read one statement there that says after the council returns, if we're in executive session, after council returns to open session, council will take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda, are discussed in the executive session during a properly noticed meeting. And you all received an amendment to item 8A in terms of the executive session item. That executive session item is Coggins versus Richland County pending litigation, receipt of legal advice and plan of action in response to the recent court order. And part B of that report is potential resolution, settlement of contract, personnel matter, former administrator Gerald Seals. Mr. Smith, does that item have outside legal?
Yes, that item does, Mr. Chair, have outside counsel. And based on council rules, of course, we would take that matter up at this time.
With that being said, then I'll entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Chair,
to go
Mr.
for
Chair,
executive session for Coggins versus Richland County, pending litigation for receipt of legal advice and plan of action in response to a recent court order. Court order. And part B of that is potential resolution statement of a contract personnel matter involving former Administrator Gerald Seal. To entertain a motion to go into executive session for that item.
Mr. Chair, before we go into executive session, is it necessary to go into executive session on this item? Justice in open session?
It is a legal matter. I'll let the attorney respond to that.
Mr. Smith, can you address that for me, please?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, before Mr. Smith speaks, this is Delia Myers.
Hold up, Mr. Smith. Let me recognize Ms. Myers. Go ahead, Ms. Myers.
I just want to say I agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Dickerson. I think it's high time that these matters, which have been shielded from the public and have been allowed to create their own life and to take on just constant misinformation, intentional lies, I think it ought to be on the public record. That's all, sir.
Mr. Smith, you
Okay.
say why this is
So, Mr. Livingston, certainly these matters are matters which legal advice or the receipt of legal advice is privileged and confidential information. We are not in a position to give counsel legal advice in an open session unless the counsel wants to waive that privilege. We won't be able to do that. We operate under the rules of professional responsibility, which require us to do these things in a certain way and to properly advise our clients regarding how that needs to be done. Now, if the counsel wants to give their informed consent and waive that privilege, then certainly they have the right to do that. But I think that counsel needs to know the ramifications of that waiver before they make that decision. But it's our recommendation that these matters be handled in the forum for which they were intended, which is executive session.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Dick, you recognize?
I will acknowledge the advice of our attorney since that's what we pay him for. But personally speaking, I wish we could do this out, but I would take the advice of our attorney, but I will go in there reluctantly because I think we need to just, maybe after we come out, I will have my say, but right now we'll take the advice of the attorney and whatever the motion is, I'll support.
Mr. Chair?
Miss, did I get a motion for executive session yet?
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
Jim Lear. I move that we go into executive session only for information that is appropriate for executive session.
Mr. Manning, is that under the guidance of the things I mentioned, Coggins versus Richland County and so forth, but any of that needs to be only what's required to be in executive session from those matters?
Yes, sir. And the reason I made the motion the way I did is because I've been voting against going into executive session for almost 12 years now and calling into question many of the things that we go in for. However, when it's appropriate, I'm always for it. But if we go into executive session and the first thing we hear is, well, there was a court hearing held on this matter on such and such a date, well, that doesn't qualify for executive session. So whatever should be talked about, as Councilwoman Dickerson and Vice Chairwoman Myers has said, and I've advocated for 12 years, let's talk about the public portion and then go into executive session for what truly qualifies for, because legal advice telling me what day the hearing was on is not legal advice. So I hear what they're saying and I totally agree. But at the same time, I believe our attorney is telling us that there will be a bit of legal advice that they professionally, and I would be very leery about waiving whatever we waive for them to do illegal legal work. But at the same time, I don't want to go into executive session and be hearing 2/3 of it, stuff that should be in public session. And that's why I made the motion the way I did.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second Mr. Manning's motion.
That is second based on Ms. Manning's statement and what I read regarding the purpose of the session. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair, this is Delia.
Ms. Myers, you recognize.
I'd just like to have the record reflect that I am happy to waive any privilege associated with the discussion of this matter, because I believe that executive sessions and discussions of this matter have been used to shield the truth of what is actually going on with this matter from the public. So I would waive that right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Smith, my concern is I just want to make sure that I make a decision that's going to protect the interests of county council.
You can have it.
And my concern is when taking legal matters outside of executive session, I think leave council open to perhaps serious legal challenges and obligations, and that's my concern. Any further discussion? If not, I'll.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
You recognize.
Yes, I did notice that Mr. Malinowski had his hand raised before I did, so I'm not sure if he actually wanted to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski. I apologize, I didn't see that hand.
I only wanted clarification on the agenda that was here. You read number 8A, you said, which was a paragraph that was in there. And the next two items are listed as A and B. So what you read, was that actually A, and these are?
A and B is what we go into executive session to discuss.
Right, but you read a paragraph in there about returning to open session and said that was 8A. Is it?
Well,
B or
that was just a statement reference executive session, make sure it's clear in terms of the intent.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
And
enough.
that statement will probably be on all of our agendas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Thank you. Am I recognized, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you have to.
Thank you. Just as it relates to this motion, I want to acknowledge the advice of our attorney and certainly acknowledge our right as a body to receive this advice in executive session. But from my perspective, a lot of the problem has been a lack of transparency with the public, which is why I feel that this should be a conversation that's held in open session. But regardless, should the motion pass, since we do have this desire for transparency, nothing would prevent us from coming out of a session and disclosing all of the information that is right to disclose to the public. And so I will vote against going into executive session for this matter, but should the motion pass, I would urge us to come out and give a very clear update to the public on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. McBride, you recognize.
Yes, I want to make it clear, and I think Mr. Manning also, he can speak for himself. The executive session that we're talking about is following all guidelines. and that we will only discuss things that are relevant for executive session. Also, we need to think about the legal ramifications, and that is why I am supporting it. We have enough lawsuits already. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask Ms. On to call the roll for the motion to go into executive session.
Lanowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes, following the advice of our attorney.
McBride,
Same, yes, following the advice of attorney.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio, Walker,
No.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Teresa?
I got kicked out of the meeting, or maybe I kicked myself out of the meeting, but I would vote no for executive session. I don't know how the vote went, but
Thank you.
just so I'm marked.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Only, what was the motion? Motion carried?
The motion passed. Yes, sir.
Thank you. You will now get us ready for executive session.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Livingston, I need to make sure that Mr. Lindeman is on the line.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
And Mr. Smith, who else you need in, who do you need in the meeting?
Just myself and Mr. Lindeman.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, does that mean we're leaving the administrator out of the meeting?
No, please let the administrator in the meeting, yes.
Miss Only or Miss Black?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I be put in the breakout session again? I've been,
Kicked out again.
yes,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think, thank you.
Hello, are most of us back here? Should I take a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
The proper second come out of executive session. Again, we went in executive session to pick up the items I mentioned regarding the Coggins versus Richland County pending litigation. Is there a motion reference that matter?
Mr. Chair, point of order. You need to take a vote to come out of executive session.
Thank you very much. I'm missing Ms. Arnold, please call the roll for the motion to come out of executive session.
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kennedy, Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Ms. Only, I voted yes. I don't think I had a little technical difficulties.
Thank you.
We're out of executive session. Is there a motion reference to executive session item? Mr. Walker, you want to recognize?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move to instruct our legal counsel to file the motion for recommendation as for reconsideration as recommended in executive session.
Second.
The motion is for reconsideration reference the Coggins versus Richland County case that was discussed in executive session. It was properly second. If there's no discussion, I'll ask Ms.
Yes,
Owens.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Dickerson, you recognize.
Thank you. First of all, I respect Mr. Walker's motion, but let me be clear. I am not supporting any of those motions regarding this particular matter. I've never been pleased with it. I've never been pleased with the results. Like it happened during the time when I was chair, that was the worst year of my life. And the way Mr. Seals was treated and the way all of those things went down, there is no way under God's green, blue skies that I'm going to support any motion like this. I didn't support it before, and I will not support it now. I think he should have had a public hearing, then we wouldn't be back here going through this time after time after time. It could have been resolved long time ago. So, Mr. Walker, I respect your motion, but I will not support it.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification.
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson, completely understand what you're saying and agree wholeheartedly. But to address the body, what I'm clearly trying to do here is bifurcate the two issues. So we need to give our legal team guidance on how to pursue with the Coggins lawsuit specifically. And therefore, this first motion coming out of executive session is simply to instruct them to keep the process moving as far as the litigation is concerned. I fully intend and expect there to be a second motion as to how to address the particular issues discussed with Mr. Seals and the settlement thereof, which is where I believe that particular concern and statement would be more germane. So just for clarification, this motion is exclusive to keeping the lawsuit process moving as it pertains to the current plaintiff, Mr. Coggins, and the lawsuit we're dealing with there, not at all addressing any settlement or path forward with Mr. Seals in this motion. Thank you.
I think that's what you should have made that clear, because that didn't come out right. So maybe someone needs to read the motion the way it should be stated for clarity. So for those of us who vote, we'll know exactly what it is we are voting on in clarity.
I'm happy to restate, Mr. Chair, if it's the will of the chair.
Yes, please, Mr. Walker.
I move that we instruct our legal team as it pertains specifically to the litigation in the Coggins lawsuit to file the appropriate motion for reconsideration that would naturally come at this point and juncture in this lawsuit. Period.
Any further discussion? A motion been moved and properly second. Ms. Arnold, can you call the roll?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman,
Well, who's that?
Mr. Chair, Bill Malinowski, my hand's up.
I don't see your hand up. I apologize.
All right. And for some additional clarification to Mr. Walker's motion, what happens if reconsideration, we go back to the courts with this request for reconsideration? What are the end results going to be? What can the end results be? Can our legal team tell us this?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Malinowski, the court could either agree to basically modify or change its order in some form or fashion and give us some relief as it relates to any request that we make in our motion, or the court could simply deny our motion for reconsideration, and the judge could basically determine that she's not going to reconsider it. I mean, so.
Okay, well, normally I follow all this, but I'm still not following. I just still don't understand what we get out of it if the judge agrees to reconsideration on behalf of the county.
Well, again, we would be asking the court to, without getting into the details of this, because we discussed this in executive session, basically to consider perhaps a less drastic result.
A less drastic result.
Yeah.
Regarding portion B of this matter?
No.
Will there be another motion?
What?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if there's going to be another separate motion for letter B in this matter. And we're just dealing with A right now?
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair.
I think that
we're just dealing with Mr. Walker's motion right now, yes.
And that's what I'm trying to get clarified, exactly what it refers to.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair.
You recognize Mr. Walker?
Mr. Malinowski, you're exactly right. The intent of my motion was to address only item A, the Coggins lawsuit specifically, such that a second motion could be made as it pertained to item B.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Ms. Arnold for the motion from Mr. Walker.
So we are going to address B before I vote.
That's up to council. If the council member want to make a motion on it, yes. If not, no. It's up to council.
Okay.
Ms. Arnold
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
I abstain on this one.
Dickerson,
I abstain.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kennedy, Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
I abstain. I don't care either way. It doesn't matter.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Are there any other body regarding the session item?
Mr. Chair.
Walker, you recognize.
I move to defer the continued negotiation associated with item B to the first regularly scheduled council meeting of 2021 with the guidance for our legal counsel to communicate to Mr. Seal's legal counsel that we fully intend to cooperate and reach an amicable solution to this issue.
That motion dies for lack of a
For
second.
lack of a second.
Any,
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I didn't hear part of that motion. Was that to defer the meeting? I'm sorry, to defer the item until 2021? Was that the motion?
Yes.
I can restate if desired.
Mr. Walker, be happy to restate for you. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Go ahead.
My motion was to defer the continued negotiation of this settlement associated with item B, as discussed in executive session, to the first regularly scheduled council meeting of 2021. But in the interim, allow our counsel and instruct our counsel to communicate with Mr. Seals' counsel that we intend to fully and amicably resolve this issue at that time.
That motion dies for lack of a second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dickerson.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. You're the chair, not Ms. Dickerson.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not the chair, but it
Motion
died.
dies for lack of a second. Any other motion to come forward by reference be part of the executive session?
Here.
Who's that want to be recognized?
Bill Malinowski.
Malinowski, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What happens with Part B now, since we only voted on A? How does Part B get resolved? Can we get some input on that from legal?
Well, you assume there wasn't be another motion. I mean,
Mr. Livingston.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith, you recognize.
Okay. Well, at least at this point, Mr. Malinowski, unless the council, through a motion, would direct us to communicate something to the other party, then there wouldn't be anything that we could communicate at this point. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, that if the council were not ready at this point to address this matter tonight, that you couldn't defer it to another meeting of your choosing. But obviously, we wouldn't have anything to communicate as it relates to Part B of the agenda under that item, unless you authorize us to do so.
And if you have nothing to communicate, what then happens with that particular issue?
Well, if council fails to act on that matter, then there isn't anything that we can do with it.
So, Mr. Chair.
But it's
Hold on a minute, Dixon.
I just want to be recognized, that's all.
Okay.
When Mr. Smith finished.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it was on the agenda for council to consider, to the extent that they wanted to address it, and by way of addressing it, giving us some guidance as it relates to that particular situation.
Thank you.
Any other discussion about item 2B?
Mr. Chair, will you not recognize me? I was next.
You recognize, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, since the motion passed that was voted on, that Mr. Walker gave, the motion to reconsider, you will bring us information back on that? will be predicated on what you get back from the judge from the motion that was just passed?
Okay, Miss.
Can you tie those two together for me, please?
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Dickerson. You sort of faded out. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the last part.
I said, we passed a motion for, the council passed a motion for reconsideration for you to take back. So you'll bring that information back. So the information you bring back, will part B be predicated relative to that information so council can move forward either in 2020 or 2021?
Well, the motion that was made and passed by the council didn't tie the two together and didn't predicate what happens with that motion on anything. As I recall, the motion was simply for us to go forward with doing a reconsideration.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. That's all I need. That's fine. I won't prolong this any longer. Thank you. I know I'm feeling, and from what I'm feeling is like, wait till 5 of us are gone and then all you all can do it, because that was Mr. Walker. No, I'm not being disrespectful, but that seemed like that was the indication. So I if I'm wrong, but that was the way it came across.
I'd like to make a motion that,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm sorry, I had my hand raised.
Go ahead, I apologize. I don't see those hands, but let me scroll down. Go ahead, please, you recognize.
No problem. And, maybe you're going to make the motion that I was going to make. So I will leave that to you. But my comment would be that we had a conversation in executive session where I felt like we were wanting a broader explanation of the situation that is not privileged information to be given to the public. And so I wanted to request that information be given to the public as part of any conversation that we have in terms of the next item or this discussion in general.
Is that a motion, Ms. Newton?
Do we need a motion for that?
I don't know. I'm asking if it is.
Well, no, I don't think so, but I will, and you have an opportunity if you feel like you need to make one. But I just sort of make a motion. I would just sort of move that we authorize the attorney to enter into discussion, at least enter into discussion with Mr. Seals and his attorney, and just bring back the results of that discussion regarding this matter back to council at our next meeting. No guidance to authority to do anything other than just simply enter into the discussion so we can at least have an idea where we are at our next meeting. That's a motion.
Is that your motion, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'll second it.
And motion moving proper second discussion. Mr. Malnash, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're asking our legal department with outside counsel to go and discuss something with Mr. Seals' attorneys.
Right. In other words, if we decide at some point we want to try to reach some kind of agreement, so we have some idea where we're going.
Well, but what are we directing them to discuss? We haven't given them any direction. Are they just going to go there and say, tell us what you want?
Yes, and they can tell them, what the legal concerns are too.
Well, and also, I don't think Ms. Newton's comments were answered either. If she is requesting, I don't think she needs a motion. She's requesting that the public be told what they can be told that wasn't executive session as to what we are doing here. And it seems like that maybe should be done before we end this matter.
Oh, yeah, I'll come back to that and address that too, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions in reference to the motion? Moved and seconded. If not, I'll ask the zone to call the roll for that motion, and then we'll come back to the point that Ms. Newton was making.
Was there a point of order? Was there a second?
Yes,
Yeah,
there was.
second.
Okay.
Ms. Only?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
No,
Dickerson,
I'll say yes at this point.
okay. McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
No.
Walker,
No.
Kennedy, Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
No.
Newton,
No.
motion fails.
Any other motion to come up regarding this particular item?
Mr. Chairman?
Right, you recognize.
Yes, sir. Are you going to ask that this be explained fully to the public after the motions period, or are we going to do that now? Insofar as it can be discussed or presented by the attorneys.
If there's no objection, I'm okay with the attorneys presenting information to the public that doesn't jeopardize the county's legal standing, reference this particular matter in terms of where we are, in terms of the case itself, in terms of what it says, as what we can say to the public. We can do that. Mr. Smith.
After they're done, I'd like to be recognized. Thank you, sir.
Now this, do we want a public display, or we just want the public to be informed of what the document says and where we're going and so forth? But go ahead, I'll pick up that later. Go ahead on, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chair, before Mr. Smith starts, I was in the waiting room, so I've been in and out all night.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I'm on my phone because I can't get through the video.
All right, thank you. Mr. Smith, can you just, the part of what you can share that doesn't compromise the county's legal position in terms of this particular case, you or Mr. Lennon? Mr. Smith?
I'll take a shot at it, Mr. Livingston. The purpose of the executive session was for the attorneys to give legal advice to the council as it relates to a court order which was issued by Judge Newman in the case of Coggins versus Richland County, and to explain to the council the legal ramifications of that order, which by way of that order invalidated a settlement agreement which had been reached between Richland County and the former county administrator. So we went through and explained to the council the legal ramifications of that order, and talked about some possible paths forward, both legally as it relates to the order itself, as well as potentially a resolution of the matter related to Mr. Seals.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Would it not be jeopardizing the county's position if you were to tell the public more specifically about what the order said as relates to FOIA and so forth? But that was the guts of the order. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. The court. The order basically indicated that there were some violations of FOIA, or the county did not, or some infractions on behalf of the county related to adhering to FOIA, which led to the invalidation of the action that was taken by the council in 2018. And so that has resulted in the invalidation of the agreement itself. And so we were talking about the legal ramifications of that and some paths forward to address the legal implications of that order, as well as the effect on the other party. And let me just add that the order, however, did not say that the court found that there was any issue related to the amount that had been agreed to or anything like that. It was strictly the invalidation of the agreement was strictly based on infractions of FOIA.
Thank you. Ms. Newton? Newton, your hand
Thank you,
up?
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize our attorney to enter into and continue conversations with Gerald Seals and his representation, and that we defer this matter till our next regularly scheduled council meeting, at which point council can come prepared to make additional recommendations regarding resolving this matter.
Is there a second? Not Livingston, second. Discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's moving properly. Second discussion.
Mr. Chair, what's the difference between that motion and the one that was just made and defeated?
May I address that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
From my perspective, Mr. Malinowski, the first motion was just authorize our attorney to have a conversation and present whatever he finds out when we come back together. My position is that we, as a council, need to also come prepared to make some recommendations and some options that we can discuss. So I guess it was putting some onus on us that we wouldn't just be recipients of information, but that we would be providers of information at our next regularly scheduled meeting in terms of how we might move forward.
Well, but if our attorneys go forward with what you're requesting, we haven't given them anything to move forward with. So they're in the same situation.
Well, mine wasn't to authorize, mine was to continue conversations. There may be information that we do need to receive, and I want to make sure that there's an open channel where we can continue to receive that information, which was why my motion was about conversation.
And to be clear, Ms. Newton, your motion is directed at B, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm still not sure the difference between this motion and the one that was previously defeated. We're asking attorneys to contact Shields attorneys and discuss something with them. They don't have anything to go there and discuss. They would be coming back only with what maybe Shields attorneys would like to share with them, which is no different than where we were before.
They're discussing the ruling.
What was that?
They have something to discuss. They're discussing the ruling.
What's the ruling they're discussing?
That for the court.
No, that was already handled in letter A. Letter B has to do with the settlement. Our attorneys have been given nothing to go forward with regarding discussions on this settlement matter.
Call for the question.
A point of clarification.
You don't have to have anything specific to go discuss the issue.
Okay,
Go
well,
ahead
Mr. Malinowski, would that be, Ms. Newton, would include, I guess, whether he wants a public hearing or, some things like that? Is that one of the things that you would probably be asking them to discuss, whether or not they would like those kinds of things as discussed in executive session?
Ms. Dixon, we don't want to get into too much detail in terms of what they might discuss or negotiate with. I don't know, but we probably better not get into specifics.
Thank you. If I may, from my perspective, I'm interested in hearing anything and everything that Mr. Seals would like to say to us, and providing whatever forum he might desire to present that information. But specifically, I want to ensure that our attorneys have the ability to have ongoing dialogue with Mr. Seals. While it is true that we did not come up with a specific path forward to address item B, that's our responsibility to do. I just want to make sure that we have provided every avenue for dialogue possible between us and Mr. Seals while we as council work to prepare that solution. I am open to alternate wording of the motion, but my intent is to maintain dialogue. Again, I'm fascinated by anything that Mr. Seals would want to say to us, but that we can also communicate to him that we as a body are working on coming up with something that we would propose to him as a solution. And again, if someone wants to offer a better worded motion, I am open to that.
Okay, it's moving proper second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you. Councilman Walker previously made a motion, I believe it was the first motion that was made, that he said to defer any negotiation on this until our first meeting in 2021, that we intend to cooperate and reach an amicable solution on this matter. What's the difference there?
Now, that motion been made and passed. The difference is the timing. She said the next meeting. That's the difference.
All right, go ahead.
If there's no further discussion, then
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I just want to be clear. The motion is for the next regular scheduled meeting.
That's what I was assuming, but like I said, I was asking.
Well, just for
That's
clarification.
what I second.
All right, well, that'll be November 17th.
That's great.
Great. All right, thank you. Ms. Only from Colorado.
Malinowski,
No.
Dickerson,
Yeah.
McBride,
Yes, Ms. Only, please indicate that I was technically out of the other
yes, ma'am.
motion. Thank you.
Livingston,
Yes.
Terratio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
No.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That moves us to citizen input.
Mr. Chair, I think I was waiting to be recognized.
Ms. Myers, you recognize.
Thank you. I just want to note for the record that the public should understand that this Coggins lawsuit was spurred by actions of people on this council, by false statements by people on this council, that there were people on this council who convinced people in the public, including Coggins, that my vote to support a settlement for our former administrator who was subjected to discrimination, harassment, public ridicule, belittlement, derision. It's called a jackass, and a 45-minute diatribe where a council member was screaming at him at the top of his lungs on the 4th floor at 2020 Hampton Street. Having heard all of those things, my colleagues, when I supported Gerald Seals when he was fired in a late night surprise ambush vote. My colleagues then, for my trouble, did what men often do to women. They went out and said, well, surely she's either his lawyer and getting money out of it, or she must be somehow romantically connected to him. Both are lies. And I want it to be clear that those lies and smears were put forward by men on Richland County Council, and shame on you all. There will come a day, you all who did that, and Mr. Livingston, you're well aware, I have begged you all for 2 years to clear this up.
Ms. Myers.
No, sir.
This is not
Mr. Livingston, I'm going to
call
finish.
names and allegations and so forth. This is not a forum for you to do that.
Okay, these aren't allegations. I'm just stating facts. We're all aware of these facts. But I will say this. These winds that the men on this council are sowing, you have women in your lives, your daughters, your granddaughters, your sisters, your wives, your friends. They will reap the whirlwinds from these vile and vicious lies you have persisted in keeping up. You will regret these actions, and shame on each of you for propounding these lies and for covering up the fact that we had our senior most employee who was treated poorly and therefore received a settlement. Shame on you for grinding his reputation into the dust.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. I'm going to read out of order now.
I am not done, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Myers?
Okay. Well, I'll finish when it's next my turn. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is citizens' input. Ms. Only?
I didn't receive any comments.
That public hearing is open, now closed for citizens' input for 9A. 10A, citizen input must pertain to a Richland County matter not on the agenda. Items for which a public hearing is required or a public hearing has been scheduled cannot be addressed at time. Mrs. Only, anyone sign up for the second public hearing 10A?
No, sir.
That public hearing is now open and now closed. No one signed up to speak. That brings us to item 11, report of the county administrator, Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of council. In your packet on pages 27 through 36, I have included some information. And in the interest of time, if it please the council, I'll be brief. If you'd like me to go through the detailed documents, I certainly will. Would you like me to proceed, Mr. Livingston, to be brief, or would you like me to go through each detail in the document that I presented, sir?
You can be brief and then just submit whatever you have to us in writing if you need anything you don't cover.
Two pieces of items I'll cover. One, I wanted you all to notice that if you look through the information in the packet, you'll notice that over the last few weeks, since we've last reported this statistical data related to Richland County, that the percent positive has stayed roughly about the same. We are hovering slightly down for the last couple of weeks. We dropped from roughly about 11% to 10.9%, and we're kind of hovering around that mark. So while there's been some communication about the number of testing being done kind of going down, the percent positive has stayed roughly about the same. So I just kind of wanted to point that out to members of the body. Also, related to the council's mass giveaway events, there are some that are scheduled for later on this month, as well as the beginning of November. And additionally, there's been public health concern about what's been titled as a twindemic, meaning that the convergence of potential flu and COVID-19. And as a result of that, DHEC and Prisma have communicated they're giving free flu shots in Richland County throughout October, and they have posted dates and times. So we just wanted to make sure to use this forum to let the public know that if you need to get a flu shot, that you can have a flu shot provided by DHEC and Prisma at the appropriate sites that they have listed throughout the month of October for free in order to encourage flu shots for the community. Last but not least, just a quick follow-up. on a council item that was discussed. We did submit a letter to Richland One School District addressing some concerns that we had about funding that we requested. They have received that letter. I did meet with the superintendent as well as a few of his co-workers, and they have received that letter and will be taking it to their board for consideration. At this time, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions on Mr. Brown's report?
Mr. Brown, are you going to send us the information for the free flu shots and locations?
Yes, ma'am. It's actually listed on page 27 of your agenda
Oh, I
packet.
think I
can
missed
send
it. I thought you had something additional. Okay.
I can send it separately,
I
though.
apologize. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's okay.
I apologize.
No, yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
I'll send it separately, though. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. That brings us to the report of the interim clerk of council.
The clerk's office doesn't have a report.
Thank you. Report of the chair. The chair doesn't have a report. That brings us to item 14, open and close public hearings. Item 14A, authorize the issuance of general obligation bonds in one or more series, tax exempt or taxable, in an amount not to exceed $30 million for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and equipping, rehabilitating, and improving various projects throughout Richland County. That public hearing is now open. Did anyone sign up to speak to the public hearing regarding item 14A?
No, sir.
The public hearing is now closed. Item 14B, a public hearing authorizing issuance of the Fire Protection Service general obligation bonds in one or more series, tax exempt or taxable in an amount not to exceed $8 million for the purpose of acquiring and constructing fire stations and acquiring fire protection equipment, authorizing the county administrator to prescribe the details of the issuance and sale of the bonds. That public hearing is now open. Did anyone sign up to speak to the public hearing reference item 14B?
No, sir.
The public hearing is now closed. That brings us to item 14C. An ordinance amending the fiscal year 2021 victim assistance fund annual budget by $153,456. Reference to chef budget. That is a public hearing. Anyone sign up to speak?
No, sir.
The public hearing is now open and closed. And then that brings us to the item 14D, the last public hearing here. That is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2021 general fund budget by $1,092,456 to pay for the annual cost of vital worn and in-car cameras in the Richland County Sheriff Department. That public hearing is now open. Did anyone sign up to speak for that item?
No, sir. No, sir.
That public hearing is now closed. That now brings to item 15 on your agenda, approval of consent items, and that's 15A through D are your consent items. Turn to the motion reference to consent items.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Is that A or A through D?
All of them, the consent items, A
The
through
motion
D.
is for approval of consent items A through D. Is there a second? It's moving properly seconded. Discussion reference to consent items for items 15A through D. There'll be no discussion. I'll ask Ms. Owens to call the roll for item 15A through D.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 16 on your agenda, third reading items. First one is item 16A, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in one or more series, tax exempt or taxable in an amount not to exceed $30 million for the purpose of acquiring construction equipment, rehabilitating and improving various capital projects, authorizing the county administrator to prescribe the details of the issuance of the sale of bonds. The chair will entertain a motion reference item 16A regarding the obligation, general obligation bonds.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion for approval.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
It's moving properly second. Item 16 is discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Uh,
this is Shakith Newton. May I be recognized?
You recognize me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for our administrator. As I understand and read the information for the bond, there were different types of items that were in the capital improvement packet. There were those items that were being approved as is and as listed. There were those items where there was a fund that was being provided to departments for them to use at their discretion with the approval of our administrator. And then there were other items that were going to come back to council for approval. And I just wanted to give our administrator an opportunity to provide any additional information that he wanted to clarify on those items.
Yes, ma'am, I'll be specific. There are two particular areas. One is operational services and one is the magistrate offices. Those two areas, there have been requests for funds. We did not put all of the funds that were requested. So what's going to happen is in those two areas where there is multiple facilities to be considered, we're going to bring those two items or two areas back to council for priority discussions. And based on what priorities are selected, that's how those pot of funds will be spent. So by way of example, starting with the magistrate's office, there are multiple facilities. We will come to the body and say, with working with Judge Edmonds and members of council, here are the facilities that need to be addressed. Which facilities would you like to address in what order? And then those specific priorities, those funds will be spent in that direction. So the other items in the capital improvement plan, many of those, they have a line item and a number, and those are specific items that you are approving. But with those two particular groups, that will require additional prioritization, which will come to council for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Newton, you said floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield.
Ms. Thracio?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just noticed under the list of capital improvements for the detention center that there was, I believe I was told that there was a planned improvement, I guess in the drains for the around the kitchen, and I don't see that listed. Is that part of the shower upgrade, or is that planned at a later date?
No, ma'am. Director Myers is on the line, but I believe there was an emergency situation. But Director Myers, could you provide clarity, please, sir?
Yes, sir. You're correct. We had drains, for the lack of a better word, snaked, or a camera went down the drains, and we found we had several drains that had collapsed or were in need of repair. So I decided to go ahead and repair 5 drains that run under the kitchen floor that we have to dig up the kitchen floor and get those replaced. And yes, sir, that was an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happening now, Mr. Horatio. That's not waiting on any funding. That's actually happening now as an emergency item.
Okay, good to know. And funds are available for that?
We're
yes,
working.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can't raise my hand, so I'm going to have to interrupt.
You recognize. I hear you.
Okay, thank you. For the capital improvements on page 103, I see where DSS warehouse upfit and roof replacement is $3,200,000, and then we have another parking lot resurfacing is $1.3 million. That's like $4.5 million for a facility that needs to be replaced. Is this a request, Mr. Brown, or something you're considering? Or could you explain exactly why we're putting this money to this, and then we're also thinking about another facility?
That's a good question, and that's what Ms. Newton, Councilmember Newton, was trying to get clarity on. So under those particular items under operational services that you just mentioned, operational services requested quite a large sum of money for all of these items. What you have before you is not an approved list of items that will be done for operational services. What you're pointing out is what I'm suggesting will happen is you will approve a pot of money that we requested potentially, and then you will come as members of council and say, Mr. Brown, we're going to be moving, so we're not going to spend money on building A, but we will spend money on, this other item. So right now, I'm not asking you to approve specific buildings to be worked on or worked in. I'm asking you to approve a pot of money for operational services purposes, and then we will come back and determine which priorities we're going to spend those funds on. So that will not happen without specific communication between you and I as members of council and the administrator before my staff can take any action to spend those funds.
Okay. And why I pointed those two out, because as you know, and I've talked about it constantly, we are in dire need of a new DSS facility, Department of Social Services facility. And I would like for us, when we come to that issue, to consider just the amount of money to do some bare repairs is about $4.5 million. So that's the point I'm trying to get at. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Reference item 16A. Thank you, Mr. Manlott. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Administrator Brown.
Yes, sir.
You have on page 104 listed a security upgrade project, and what is that for? Is it for the Pine View Public Safety or for something else?
Though the security upgrade project was related to some items at 2020. I'll give you one quick example, and this may give you an idea. Earlier this year, we had some vandalism that occurred on our county frontage off of Lawrence Street. And one of the things that we were able to identify is because of some equipment that we thought was operational, but it's not. That's just one example. There's also other examples with our, I don't want to get into too many details, but some other facility related security matters that we believe to be operational that were not. That's part of it as well. There's also some concerns that have been expressed, and I think maybe some of you may know about it, related to some entry access that probably needs to be modified. That's part of it as well. So risk management has presented a program, and I think this is not the first year they've done that, where they recommended that the county take these actions to address these exposures. And this is an attempt to address those exposures so that we don't find ourselves dealing with an unnecessary risk that could have been prevented.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. My last question is the one right under it, number 23, the township parking lot. What are we getting or doing for the $1.8 million?
Right. So that's a good question. Now, the details of those projects were listed in the program that we submitted. I think last week. I'm not sure if it was again this week. But again, that specific project and all of that list under operational services, those things will not be done unless we being the council, identifies that these are the projects that we're in fact going to do in those areas, because you're not being asked to approve $17 million for operational services tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Oner, did I get a motion and a second on item 16A?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Will you please call the roll for the vote, then?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
No.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
No.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
No, because of my motion from last week, which would rationalize the spending. Thank you.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings to item 16B, authorize the issuance of fire protection service general obligation bonds in one or more series tax exempt, taxable to the amount of not to exceed $8 million for the purpose of acquiring, constructing fire stations and acquiring protection equipment, authorizing the county administrator to describe the details of the issuance and sale of the bonds and form the details of the bonds. The chair intend a motion regarding item 16B, fire bonds.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion for approval. Is there a second? Reference fire bonds.
I'll second for discussion.
Been moving properly, second, discussion. Any discussion reference the motion for item 16B? There being no discussion, then Ms. Owen, I'll ask you to call the roll for item 16B, reference to
Yes.
fire bonds.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 16C, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2021 Victim Assistance Fund annual budget by $153,456 to amend Richland County Sheriff budget in the Victim Assistance Fund. Chair, entertain a motion for 16C.
Move to approve.
Motion for approval, item 16C. Is there a second? Livingston will second. Discussion. There be no discussion. It's only, can you call the roll for item 16C?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
No.
Dickerson,
Yes, and may I say one thing? I'm saying yes because of the way Chief Cowan explained this additional funding, so I will vote yes to support Chief Cowan on this item. Thank you.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings to item 16D, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2020 general fund annual budget by $1,092,456 to pay for the annual cost of body worn cameras and in-car cameras in Richland County Sheriff Department's fund budget. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion for
Move
approval.
to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moving properly second. Discussion reference item 16D. There being none, then the chair would ask Ms. Owen to call the roll for the vote for item 16D.
Malinowski,
No, and that no vote is because of the victim assistance item that's contained herein.
yes, sir. Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair,
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Newton, you recognize.
do these items need to be reconsidered?
that's what I was going to ask.
Staff. Can anyone from staff answer that question to these items need to be reconsidered?
Mr. Chair, I'll ask the staff, but if these are third reading items, do.
Yeah, they can be reconsidered since they're third reading item, yes.
Okay. Well, if they can be reconsidered, then they could be reconsidered, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you heard the administrator, is there any recommendation, motion for reconsideration of the items, into the third reading items?
Did Ms. Newton make the motion?
I did not, Ms. Dickerson.
She
Well,
raised a question.
I make a motion for reconsideration of item 16A through D, unless we have to take them individual.
The
I'll
motion
second
was
that.
16A through D for reconsideration. Discussion. If not, I'll ask Ms. Owen to call the roll.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
No.
McBride,
Yes, Miss Only. Have you been counting my votes for the last three?
no ma'am.
Well, I voted on the last three.
Well, you'll get with her and get, and
Okay, thank you.
since it didn't affect the outcome.
Okay.
This a motion to reconsider, Ms. McBride.
No.
All right, Livingston,
No,
Horatio,
No.
Walker,
No.
Manning,
No.
Myers,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
okay, that brings us to item 17 on your agenda. Excuse me, second reading items. The first one is 17A, in order to authorize consent for the annexation to the city of Columbia for 509 plus or minus acreage on Cinder Lane, which is a portion of the tax map number 07208-03-02. And this is a part of Three Rivers Greenway. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Moving properly second. Discussion. Mr. Malinowski, you need to recognize on this one?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I need some clarification. Until I get it, I will vote no. We've got till third reading to do it. In the subject matter, the October 6th meeting showed the TMS number as 07208-03-01/02. So we've got a difference on the TMS number. That was on page 332 under the subject line. And the second item, there was also previously at the first reading, a petition for annexation that was attached, and there were maps, and none of that is present here. So I don't believe we've got a complete package to vote on, nor do I believe we have either correct information now or we had incorrect information at the last reading on the TMS number. So I'd like to see that corrected by third reading, please.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, Ms. Only, can you call for the vote for item 17A?
Malinowski,
No, until we get those corrections.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers, Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That moves to item 17B. authorize execution in lieu of fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreement by between Richland County, South Carolina, and Project Sunshine to provide for the payment of fee in lieu of taxes, authorizing certain infrastructure credits, authorizing administration of a grant, approving the transfer of certain real property and other related matters. Entertain a motion reference item 17B.
Move to approve.
Motion for approval.
Second.
And properly second. Any discussion? There being none, I'll ask Ms. Owen to call the roll for item 17B.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers, Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 17C for the benefit of Project Sunshine, approving the acquisition and transfer of certain real property located in Richland County, the granting of certain easement and other matters related thereof. Entertain a motion. Item 17C.
Move to approve.
Motion for approve. Is there a second?
Well, who
I'll-
moved?
Second.
Yeah, I'll
Move properly
second it if
second
you
for
would
item
just move that.
17C. Discussion. There being none, Ms. Owen, can you call the roll for the vote for item 17C?
Yes. Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
I vote no until we get an answer to the annexation issue.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That brings us to item 18 on your agenda, which is other items. The first one is 18A, an ordinance extending extending ordinance 26-20 HR, an emergency ordinance requiring the wearing of face masks to help alleviate the spread of the COVID-19. Entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's moving properly second. That we incorporate the days because it's standard was what 61 days. The law is that incorporated into the ordinance. Just want to make sure.
Mr. Chair, we don't even have a copy of this ordinance.
Yeah, but we'll go ahead and copy it up a few times.
Well, it seems to me it should be in there every time. What if somebody just moved into the area and is following our actions?
Oh, your point's well taken. I'll make sure that's the case in the future.
Thank you.
Was there a motion?
Yes.
It's moving properly second. There's no discussion. I'll ask Ms. On call roll reference item 18A.
Malinowski,
No.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
No.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers, Newton.
Yes. Yes.
Motion passes.
That brings item 18, excuse me, B, extension of grantee expenditures for COVID-19 pandemic relief grant funds. Entertain a motion. Ms. Brown, do you need to speak to that?
Sure, Mr. Chair, just briefly, if you don't mind, I'm sorry,
Yes.
should I yield to Councilmember Newton?
No, I was going to ask if you could address the item.
Yes.
I was reading Ms. Newton's mind when I said that to you.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Back in a special call meeting on July the 28th, there was a discussion about giving grantees an opportunity to get their paperwork in so that they could receive the funds that Richland County has set aside through its pandemic relief program. We came and asked the council for an extension at that time. During that meeting, we said if necessary, if all folks had not returned their paperwork so they could get the funding that they needed, that we would come back. And that was part of the discussion. And so this is just us coming back saying we still have some folks who had qualified for the awards, but they needed help and have not submitted all of their documentation. As a result, we're asking to extend their time till the end of December, just like we extended to the end of October previously. So we're asking for council to make a motion to extend the deadline for those folks until the end of December. So December 31st.
Thank you.
Follow-up question.
Excuse me, Ms. McBride.
So, Mr. Brown, what you're saying is that some of the applicants that we approved, they have not received the funds, therefore constituents aren't receiving.
Yes, ma'am. There are some applicants who were approved to be able to receive funds, but in order to do so, they have paperwork that they needed to complete, and they have not completed all their paperwork. Some of them, again, needed some assistance. And so we're working with them to try to get them that assistance so they can continue to try to get the money that you had approved for them to get.
Because I know that there are many people needing help. And we have the funds, but we're not able to get it to them. And I hope that we're making a list of some of the problems that we encountered in this process so that we could correct them in the future.
Yes, ma'am. I do know that Mr. Hayes and his team have taken note of a couple of issues that they received, both from communications with council members, from constituents or parties, as well as directly from applicants themselves.
And the final question, we still have not received or applied for any additional federal funds?
Yes, ma'am. We have applied for federal funds that we could apply for. We have not received any additional federal funds at this time that we are able to receive.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown, is that under the CARES Act?
Yes, ma'am. That is under the CARES Act.
Thank you.
Any further discussion reference item 18B? Not, yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. McBride, you recognize.
Oh, no more discussion. I was going to
Okay.
make the motion.
Okay, Ms. Owen, can you call the roll for the vote for item 18B?
Point of order. Point of
Ms.
order,
Lee,
Mr. Chair. I don't believe that we have a motion on the floor.
We don't.
I just moved. That's what I was saying, Mr. Chair. I was moving.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Lee.
Second.
Chair, entertain a motion for item 18B.
That's what I was moving for the item.
It's been moved
And
by
I
Ms.
second it.
McBride. Is there a second?
Second.
Moving properly second. Any further discussion? If there none, Ms. Owen, can you call the roll for the vote for item 18B?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
Bride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, if
Point
necessary.
of information, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. Ms.
Ms.
Lee.
Hold on.
I yield to Mr.
Ms.
Brown.
Brown, do anything need to be reconsidered here?
That's what I was going to ask for, sir. Thank you.
I was reading your mind too.
Ms. Chair, I make a motion to reconsider.
Second.
Which item are we referring to?
We're referring to item 18B.
Yes, ma'am.
18B, that's, thank you, Ms. Brown and Ms. Dickerson. It's been moved and proper second to reconsider item 18B. Ms. Owen, can you call the roll for the vote for reconsideration of item 18B?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
No.
Dickerson,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No?
Horatio,
No.
Walker,
No.
Manning,
No.
Myers,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
That brings us to,
Chair, we reconsidered
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair. We did reconsider 18A, didn't we?
no, we did not. Chair, entertain a motion for reconsideration for item 18A.
I move for reconsideration of item 18A.
Second.
It's moving proper second reconsideration item 18A. Mrs. Owner, can you call the roll for the motion for reconsideration for item 18A?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Horatio,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
No.
Myers,
No.
Newton.
no.
Motion fails.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
You recognize the new.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Point of information. At the beginning of our meeting, I believe that we added some hospitality tax items to our agenda. And the agenda that I have printed out has items C, D, and E. What are the additional letters for a hospitality tax? Is it F and G, F, G, and H?
You got 8A, you have after E, you have F, and if I remember correctly, that was District 3, Ms. McBride, is that correct, I think? And then
Is that all?
And I believe that was
values is 10.
to
I
me
think.
$400. I think Mr. Hayes should be able to support that.
Let me make sure I have this right. What I have is after E, I ended up with an F for McBride District 3, and then I have a G for Ms. Myers District 10. Is that correct? Ms. Olin, do you remember whether those were the two I needed to add was 3 and 10? Because that's what I have here.
I think it's Ms. Dickerson.
And it was
Ms. Dixon was already on here, I thought.
Yeah, okay, it was an additional 425, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the addition to Ms. Dixon, but she's already on here.
It was an addition. It was sent in on time.
Oh, okay.
So Ms. Dickerson's would be I.
I'm going to add that to Ms. Dickerson on the C. So what we'll have is
Okay.
C is going to be District 2 with the addition. This D is going to be District 8. E is going to be District 4. F is going to be District 3, and G District 10.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve items 18C through G.
You heard the motion. Is there a
I'll
second?
second it. I'll second it.
It's moving properly. Second in discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Walker, you recognize.
not to belabor the point, I'm going to vote no, not for any personal reasons other than I think our age tax discretionary spending needs reform. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask Ms. Owner to call the roll for the vote for items 18, C, D, E, F, and G.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Walker,
No.
Manning,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to reconsider
Is that item C through
through
G?
G. I make a motion to reconsider 18.
Motion for reconsideration. I think I heard a second.
I second.
Thank you. Moving properly second. I'm going to ask Ms. Owner to call the roll for reconsideration for items C through G.
Malinowski,
No.
Dickerson,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Horatio,
Sorry, no.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning,
No.
Myers,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion failed.
That brings us to executive session items. I don't think we have any other, Mr. Smith, there's no other executive session items, correct?
Please not.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
That brings us to our motion period. Item 20A, a motion says that I move that all county employees presenting to the county council during an official meeting, whether special call or whatever, have a live camera running during the actual verbal input. I'll send that to the Rules Committee. Item 20B, direct the Rules Committee to determine which Richland County boards, commissions, committees should have its qualification for person applying for that particular committee. You must rely in a unincorporated area of Richland County. And I'm gonna send that to Rules. 20C, D and E. I'm gonna send those to the Renaissance Committee. If anybody have any questions about any time or agenda for that item, please contact Ms. Dickerson. She is the senior person on that committee per our rules. Before the chair is elected, that's the person who would call the meeting and so forth. So please, if you have any questions about that item, the time and agenda will be set and done by Ms. Dickerson. Did I have any other motions, Ms. Owen?
Yes, sir. I have 3.
I apologize, I didn't get those, so you have to let me know what those are.
I'll read them for you. Move that Richland County proceed with completing the plan to move the EOC EMS out of the windowless basement of the parking garage to the old junkyard property bought years ago for that purpose at the corner of Two Notch Road and Cushman Drive. And that was sent by Mr. Manning.
I'm gonna send that one to DNS. So that's the next one.
All right. I move that if matters clerk to council search or compensation for interim clerk of council are to be a part of the employee evaluation oversight ad hoc committee, that the name of the ad hoc committee be changed. What would fall under the purview of its function, responsibility, and or purpose. And that was submitted by Mr. Manning.
Can you read that again for me so I figure where to put it? I'm sorry, I didn't grasp it.
That's fine. I move that if matters such as clerk to council search or compensation for interim clerk of council are to be a part of the employee evaluation oversight ad hoc committee, that the name of the ad hoc committee be changed to better reflect what would fall under the purview of its function, responsibility, and or purpose.
All right, I'll send that to Rules.
All right, and the last one is, I move that Richland County discontinue its practice of demolishing private property in unincorporated areas of the county where that property is not located on public roads without the property owner's consent and opportunity to be heard by Richland County Council. I further move that any and all such involuntary demolitions be conducted at county expense and not at the property owner's expense, and that was submitted by Ms. Myers.
That'll go to DNS too.
That's all I have.
Anything else to come before the body?
Mr. Chair, I just want to apologize if you felt that I was out of order earlier. I will submit written comments to Ms. Only.
Thank you very much.
If nothing, I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion is moving proper second for adjournment. Ms. Olin, can you call the roll for the motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Terratio,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Manning, Myers, and Newton.
Yes, ma'am.
Meeting's adjourned, y'all may